that sort of raises the question whether there was some deliberate influence from the conspiracy side to influence the discussion of people who were more into far-right politics, or vice versa. We increasingly find that the fringes actually are very much in the contemporary media system. They are part of the information flows that help people get informed, and this is how people often form their opinions. And in this case, fringes, in my research specifically, I've looked into two platforms. Those were Telegram and 4chan. We're looking into Telegram. We have chats and channels, and chats are more of a big discussion forum, or small, all kinds of sizes, basically similar to WhatsApp groups. Channels, on the other hand, are more for streaming news, to kind of a one-way interaction. Channel moderators are just sending a lot of information to people who read it, almost like you subscribe to it. I've looked into the public side of this, because Telegram, as everybody, well, a lot of people know, it also has a private side to it, and you can't really enter into these groups unless you're invited or you have a private link somehow. So what I'm talking about today is really referring to the public side of it, where everybody can access this through keyword searches, through being added to a group or voluntarily entering, and so forth. So Telegram is actually a low moderated platform. What does this mean? It means that content can basically free flow on there, no matter whether it's true or false, whether it's misleading, conspiratorial, dangerous, etc. So what happens is that these dark platforms, such as Telegram, are welcoming those that were deplatformed a little while ago, such as Alex Jones, or from the Netherlands, Willem Engel, for example. These people were banned from Twitter previously, now they're reinstated on X, but they have been banned from most other social media platforms because of sharing things that were misleading or false or potentially dangerous. Telegram, on the other hand, is basically saying, you are welcome here, you are welcome to say whatever you like, which is great in theory. However, there's a fine line between free speech and low moderation and the consequences of low moderation. So this really shows that these low moderated platforms can really expose basically anybody to potentially dangerous narratives. And over time, some research shows that this can actually help form people's opinion. So people often migrate to dark platforms or the fringes like Telegram because what they feel that what they have to say is no longer welcome on social media. And this is not just a feeling, right? There is evidence for this. Like a lot of social media platforms started taking action against actors who were propagating some information that was really not complying with what actually was happening. They were sharing misinformation or disinformation or deliberately trying to deceive the public with coordinated efforts like such as troll farms, etc. And therefore, there is a part of the public around the world that feels that they are unheard and unwelcome on the mainstream. In fact, they find that fringe platforms are their home, their new home. That's where they can thrive. That's where they can talk to each other without any consequences, and they can have the right of free speech, so to say, without having to worry about them being deleted, etc. Of course, this is not as simple as this, because not everything is getting banned on mainstream platforms, but the sentiment of this potentially happening also created this wave of people migrating, and such as, you know, following influencers like Alex Jones to the fringes, or any other influencer across the world. That created this wave of people registering more and more on platforms like Telegram. I mean, this platform is so big now, it has nearly 1 billion users worldwide. I think there is effort to potentially moderate it more or putting more control over it, which is very good. However, banning it will never be the solution. So banning dark platforms such as Telegram will inevitably just open doors to more, potentially even darker platforms. So dark platforms are often believed to be malicious or have bad intentions or host these people who have just like grievances against everyone. However, we cannot say in general what do they do to the rest of the world or what do they do to the debate or public debate. they are part of it. They certainly are present in certain people's minds and their opinions. However, we cannot for sure say that dark platforms are shaping what people think in the US or in the Netherlands. They do shape certain people's opinions. That's straight and true. However, they do not yet show any capacity for mass mobilization, except for certain issues. And these certain issues, based on my research, is always related to crises, is always related to major world events where people become a little bit desperate for information, a little bit desperate to find simple explanations to something that's much more complicated. And oftentimes the answer is this, basically. You come together, you discuss something, you let it marinate a bit, and then you come up with your own opinion. And this is basically what happens. So public debate is not yet governed by the fringes. However, we must not underestimate this. So a positive finding, at least in my dissertation, was that even though I've uncovered that these dark platforms are very much connected to the rest of the media system, traditional media such as newspapers, public broadcasters, or entities like the New York Times are still very much the ones that are driving the debate, they're driving the discussion. Oftentimes the topics arise there, and maybe there's a reaction on the dark platforms, but the reaction doesn't go back that hard towards the mainstream. So this relationship, there is a connection, however, the wave of influence from traditional media is much stronger. So based on that, we can hope that most of people's opinions is governed by what comes out of the mainstream, the moderated platforms, and not from the darker side of the internet.